Should you do 80% compounds and 20% isolations? When I first started training, I just packed together a random program, and it was, I'm not saying it was the best, but it was decent at least. And there are these shitty fitness pages on Instagram that are like, yeah, push-pull legs is the best, and it's like a post like, bro split is a good split, and then a better split is push-pull leg split, or like, this is optimal, that is optimal. And something they used to, and I think still post, is you should do 80% compound and 20% isolation. Because of this, I changed my training program. I started doing 4 compound chest exercises because I didn't really know what a compound was. So one of those compound chest exercises was a tech fly, which is not a compound, by the way, but 4 chest exercises and then 1 tricep exercise, following the 80% compound, 20% isolation rule. And now looking back at it, this made my training worse. But okay, let's talk about the 80% compounds, 20% isolations. This ratio is never really specified. They always just say do 80% compounds, 20% isolations. What does that mean? Per week? Per training session? Per muscle group maybe? Or just all together, like you mix all of the sets from all of the muscle groups together and like 80% compound, 20% isolation? Or you mean maybe level of effort, or what? Okay, none of these would make any sense. My argument is that every muscle group is different and has different requirements. Now, there's some muscle groups that need purely isolations. There are muscle groups that can grow from only compounds, and you probably don't even need isolations. You can maybe sprinkle a bit in, and there's some that like need both basically. I have 2 examples for that. The first one is calves. Calves are a muscle group that are purely targeted through isolation movement. Anybody except dads in their 40s and 50s who go fishing on the weekends and have never seen a gym, these people are killing me, man, will have small calves if they don't isolate them. And so I challenge you, if you believe in this rule, tell me 1 compound exercise, just 1, that targets the calves, not works them, targets them. The squat works the calves, but they don't target them. You can't, because there's no such thing. There's only calf raises, which are isolation movement. So if the 80-20 thing was meant per muscle group, it's already debunked, because if you want to train your calves with 80% compounds and 20% isolations, okay, what are the compound movements? My second example are front delts. You don't do isolations for front delts. A lot of people don't even directly train front delts because you can get them covered through just enough benching, and those are compound movements. But if you want to do a bit more extra, you can do an overhead press like I do, and that's also a compound movement. I literally know 1 single isolation movement for front delts, which is front raises, and the only people who do them in the gym are usually retards. Retards who use also way too much momentum and do it like this, like, oh, and they just want to look cool in the gym. And first of all, you don't even need to isolate them, and second of all, like, who the fuck does the exercise even? So with front delts, for an example, I don't see the need for the 20% isolation at all. If I break down the body into muscle groups that I will train separately, I will break it down to 11 different muscle groups. Those are calves, hamstrings, quads, abs, back, chest, front delts, rear delts, side delts, biceps, tricep. This is how I break it down. There's no right or wrong answer. Let's say it's only the 11 that I said before. Of those 11 muscle groups, there are 6 that need isolation to grow, and that either don't even have a compound exercise that targets them, or have maybe 1 that's either subpar or not everybody can do them, or even if it's not subpar and everybody can do them, it's just 1. With that, I'm talking about calves. Pure isolation, there's no compound that targets them. Rear delts, there are face pulls, and that's all. Maybe rear delt rows. Well, that's the point. I guess you can search hard enough and find the compound, but why?
But why? Why do an inferior movement?
Besides that, you will do lateral raises, and the only compound I know is upright rows. Yeah, I know the face pulls target them, but who gives a shit? Then there's abs. Compound movements don't target the abs. They work the abs, they work the core, but they will not target it. You need to isolate your abs. Then there's biceps. Again, there's 0 compound movements you can do for biceps. No, chin-ups are not a bicep movement. And then triceps, where the only compound exercise I can think of is a JM press, and not everybody's elbows will be able to tolerate that, I guess. Besides these 6 muscle groups, the other 5, you can work them through just purely compound movements. You don't necessarily need isolations. You can include them and they might be wise sometimes, but yeah, you don't really need them. The other thing is these isolation heavy muscle groups will have higher volume requirements usually than their counterparts that can grow from compounds only. So triceps, biceps, side delts, shoulders, all of these muscle groups, they can recover more easily than your chest, quads, hamstrings, so they need more volume. So therefore, you will have more isolation volume because these need isolations and they need more volume. So how do you do 20% isolations then? That is my question. The math just doesn't add up. So let's say you do only compounds for the 5 that I said and only isolations for the 6 that I said. That's still 54% isolation. But in reality, on the muscle groups where you do mostly isolation training, if not only, you will do higher volume on most of them. So it's even more than that. So again, the math doesn't add up. I went to math class in high school, so I know what I'm talking about. So 80% compounds, 20% isolations is a bullshit. It's a myth. You cannot apply it in any shape or fashion. In a well-designed training program, isolation movements will probably take up at least half of the total volume of the training program every single week, if not more. I agree that it shouldn't be too much either, and you still should pretty much focus on your compounds. Yeah, focus on those. That doesn't mean you don't put effort into your isolations. People sometimes try to make the argument of compounds being time efficient, but I would argue no, they aren't. Just because a deadlift hits a lot of muscle groups, it doesn't target all of those muscle groups. But in return, if you want to do 3 heavy sets of it, it will take you a fucking hour, and you're not really able to superset it. So which is really more time efficient? And again, just because a compound movement works several muscle groups at the same time, it doesn't mean that it provides enough stimulus to all of them. And so don't fall for the trap of minimalist training advice. I'm telling you what my program looks like. It's usually 2 to 3 compounds, usually 3 in the beginning, and then 3 to 4 isolation movements that are usually supersetted. This is balanced, it's time efficient, it works, and it hits all of my major muscle groups well. So don't fall for this BS. Isolations are underrated. You can do around half of your training program from them, but it will always be more than 20%. So this myth has been debunked. I also debunked 7 other fitness myths here in this video.